Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Andy Nguyen, and today I'm going to be reviewing the KBD67 Lite R2 from KBD fans. Stay tuned. It's one of those budget boards. This board is $109 in the R2 group buy from KBD fans, and that is a steal. And its direct competitors are the NK65EE, the Ramakara, as well as the EK68 Aurora. The EK68 Aurora GB already ended, as well as the Kara, but it's good to discuss them so we can understand what's really happening with the entry-level keyboard market. So before we get started with the review, let's talk about the differences between R1 and R2, because R1 already happened, so this is the R2 version. Between the R1 and the R2 has Bluetooth, it has an injection molded polycarbonate plate, and it comes with upgraded polycarbonate stabs. And this is going to be an upgrade from the cherry style stabs that KBD fans usually ships with their boards, so it's actually something really interesting to look forward to. The Bluetooth PCB is also a great thing because now you can have a travel keyboard and you can have it really light. And the other difference is the R2 does not come pre-assembled. I personally like it not assembled anyway, so I can make sure I can tune the stabs and do all the adjustments before putting it all back together. With the injection molded polycarbonate plate, you don't have to use standoffs for the hot swap, so that's a really nice addition. Makes it easier to assemble and take apart. So let's talk about the build quality of this board. It's right here. It feels very light in hand. The texture of the board is right here. You can see it's not perfectly smooth, but with the affordable ABS plastic, I don't expect like anodization level smoothness. In terms of how it feels in hand, it feels honestly a little light and a little cheap. And that's one of my main concerns. It just doesn't feel as hefty as I want out of a keyboard. One of the note on build quality, there's a lot of users that got the KBD67 Lite R1 and they put on bump-ons and it ended up bouncing because it's so light. So in this build, I did not use the bump-ons. So the design of the keyboard. The design of the keyboard is really meant to be a very cheap, affordable plastic keyboard. I know some people don't like plastic keyboards, but things they're able to do when the board is made out of plastic, the cost savings really makes it attractive for a beginner. It's very similar inside profile and look as the KBD67 Mark II, which is an aluminum keyboard, but just plastic. It's not top mounted per se, it's more like kind of gasket mounted. I like the fact that there is case foam included, as well as a plate foam, so you don't have to buy that separately. With the KBD67 Mark II, when I bought the board, I had to get the MK Ultra Foam, which is another additional $20, $30, $40, especially after shipping. And one, it takes time, two, it costs more money. So having this all included in the $109 is really nice. It also takes screw-in stabilizers, which is usually my main concern with these more affordable boards. For some reason, they keep putting in plate mount stabilizers. Because this one case has the compatibility for the Bluetooth PCB as well as the hot swap PCB, there's actually a hole in the case for the battery. This hole you probably want to fill with some shelf liner or some foam. In the ridges, there's a little bit of space so you can put in tire weights if you wish to make it feel a little bit heavier and maybe improve the acoustics a little bit. This board is extremely light though. Look at me turn this around. It's like the weight of a paperback book. This book is heavier. That's a little concerning. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be moving around on your desk, and maybe you like having something lighter that can be easily moved around on your desk. So in terms of sound and feel, this is where the board shines. Listen to that. That's so thocky. This board punches well above its price point. It sounds so thocky, it sounds so deep. It feels great when typing. It doesn't feel too stiff. This is of course using the injection molded polycarbonate plate, so it's not as stiff as an aluminum plate or a brass plate. What I was surprised with is the fact that it doesn't sound hollow, despite being a light plastic board with a lot of void space in there. This is probably aided by the included case foam that helps with the acoustics, which is good. $109 full package, you don't have to buy anything else. That's a great option for a beginner. Honestly, this sounds better than my KBD67 Mark II, especially stock versus stock. The KBD67, you had to buy the foam, or else it would sound kind of pingy, kind of hollow. This just sounds great out of the box, and it's so cheap and light. It's astonishing, honestly. The front height is 18.5 millimeters, and the typing angle is 6 degrees, so it's pretty comfortable to use without a wrist rest. And that's usually my main thing when I'm looking at boards. How tall is it? What's the typing angle? Can I use it without a wrist rest? If I have to use a wrist rest, I typically pass on it. So how does it compare with more expensive boards? Gotta be honest with you. The Iron 165 actually sounds more hollow than this. How? The Iron 165, I rebuilt it with lavenders on FR4. Maybe it's the lavenders, maybe it's the case itself. I put on a 1/16 inch layer of pour on there, which I did before. It sounds hollow. I can hear it. I can't hear it in this. That's a very far stretch because the Iron 165 does not have the best acoustics, especially with linears, so it's like an unfair comparison. Of course, the Chimera 65 will smoke this board, but the Chimera 65, even at retail, is a few $100s. Oof. This is $109. So we gotta compare this with the direct competitor. Let's say an IKI68 Aurora. So here, KBD67 Lite. This is the IKI68 Aurora. Between the two, the IKI68 Aurora sounds a little less deep. So if you like the thocky sound, I do recommend going for the KBD67 Lite. But if you want more customization in terms of like gasket options, rubber layers, as well as weight options and swappable badges, IKI68 Aurora. And this has a little bit more compatibility in regards to layout. So you can have your split space bar, your ISO enter if you so desire. And the other competitor is the original Tofu, which is the go-to beginner board from KB fans. The Tofu is metal, feels better in the hand, pretty sharp. Feels more quality because of the weight itself of the aluminum case, as well as the pretty thin rear brass weight, but it feels nicer. It's also more expensive. Not by much, but still every $20, $30 counts. So with the Tofu, there's a lot of modifications you can do to try to make it sound better. You can add sorbethane, you can add some other case foam, you can Dremel off the standoffs, you can put O-rings on the standoffs, you can do gummy O-ring mount. There's a lot of mods that makes it interesting and make it sound pretty good. And the mods allow it to compete with endgame boards, at least in terms of sound. It's really interesting because I see a lot more viewers go toward my Tofu videos because it's a lot more accessible than these really rare, niche, hard to acquire endgame boards. See what you can do with a more affordable board before trying to drop hundreds and thousands of dollars on an expensive one. That's how you should do it. So who is this board for? Right here, it is a great beginner board. Honestly, the Tofu is a great beginner board. The KBD67 Lite was a great beginner board, but I actually would recommend this over the aluminum one. So grab this instead of the Mark II. But if you want a clackier sound, this might not be the board for you. I'm using a pretty clacky switch in here, which is the Dojicon, which is a JWK recolor, which are clackier switches, but for some reason, it just stocks. In terms of like critical switch testing, this may not be the board for you. If you're trying to start a YouTube channel and you want a hotspot board and you want to do like switch testing and get those views, everything's gonna sound very similar in this board, in my opinion. It's a pretty no frills board, but it's a solid board with a great price. So in conclusion, this board is a great option for beginners. It's a little jarring because it's so light when you first touch it, but when you type on it, once it's built with some switches, ooh-wee, it is a nice sound. I recommend getting this board, getting started, start testing switches, start testing stabilizers, start testing modding, trying different keycaps, see what you like. Is it gonna be the end game board? Probably not, but the entry level boards are not meant to be. Honestly, it's a great option to send toward your friends that are trying to get into the hobby. Maybe they'll just be happy with this. There's nothing fancy about it, it just does its job well. So I give this board a thumbs up, especially for the price point. So in conclusion, I like the board. It's a solid choice, and as a THOCK lover, whew, it's pretty nice for $109. And that's gonna be the end of the review. Please consider giving me a thumbs up, clicking subscribe, clicking the notification bell, and really help support the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.